I want to talk about being with God. Then they brought to him one possessed with a devil, blind and dumb, and he healed him. But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "He is casting out devils by the prince of the devils." And Jesus said, "Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall his kingdom stand? But if I cast out devils by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God is come unto you. Or else, how can one enter into a strong man's house and take his goods, except he first bind the strong man? He that is not with me is against me, and he that gathereth not with me scattereth abroad." What does it mean to be with God? To be with God means to be clear on what side you're on. Being with God may mean something different than you think. My objective is to help people evaluate whether or not they are with God. So, how can I know I'm with God? Well, when you understand this passage, you will know what it means to be with God. Jesus makes it simple. We are either with him or we're against him. There are no two ways about it. There can be no middle ground. This is what is called a dichotomy. A dichotomy shows a clear distinction and contrast between working to build the kingdom or coming against the kingdom, even through neglect. I don't know how else to say this, but unless you can look at your life and identify exactly what you're doing to advance the kingdom of God, then you may be in opposition to Jesus. The people in a company who are not working towards the company's goals are destructive. Even if they're just goofing off, they're enemies to the company. That's how we should evaluate most things in our lives. Whatever is not helping you may be hurting you. Jesus had amazing clarity. He could uncomplicate things. He said, either you're actively gathering with me or you're scattering the things which I am gathering. The scattering, I get it. But what if I choose to neither scatter or gather? Jesus says, then you're scattering by default. Let me be clear. That means if the sum total of your life does not add up to your advancing God's kingdom, then your life is detrimental to the kingdom of God. This means you can't be giving with one hand and then taking with the other. That would be like a man saying, I take care of my wife, I take care of my home, I put that first before I go to the strip club. That's like saying, I do my work at work, so it's okay to steal the supplies I need on the side. These things are obviously negative, but what if I just opt to do nothing? Jesus taught that doing nothing is scattering abroad. He defined not gathering with him as scattering abroad. Jesus told those Pharisees that were getting on the wrong side of things when they accused him of using the devil's power to cast out devils. Jesus told them that's not how things work, because that would be Satan casting out Satan. He explained that no kingdom or house is divided against itself withstand. Jesus was telling them that they must stand fully on one side or the other. That's because there are only two sides. Jesus was saying that there is God's side and there's Satan's side. They were suggesting that Jesus was using Satan's power to cast out Satan. Jesus was saying, wait a minute, that makes no sense. You better consider which side you're on. Here's the point. To take over a strong man's house, you must do battle with the strong man. Jesus was saying, I did battle with the strong man of the house. So how could I be on his side? Come on, this is not rocket science. There are only two sides. God and Satan are clear about what side they're on. What about you? Are you clear about what side you're on? Jesus taught that you can tell what side you're on by what you do. If you're casting out devils, you're clearly on God's side. But if you're criticizing the one who is casting out devils, you might be on the devil's side. People who go around fighting the church must not be on God's side. Yes, there are a lot of problems with the organized church. But Jesus said, I will build my church. In the Bible, whenever it talks about the church, it's referring to the organized church. The church at Philippi, the church at Antioch. There was a church at Corinth. None of these churches were perfect. They all had problems. As a minister, I speak to many of the problems that are in the church, but I still believe in churches because there is no other institution that belongs to God. Remember, Jesus said, I will build my church. It's still his church, and I don't understand all the problems with the church, but I believe there is a church for everyone. The people who are walking around not going to church, talking about I'm spiritual, but I'm not part of organized religion, they're deceived. They're not under anybody's authority. They're not part of any church and have become their own authority. They just don't want to give, plain and simple. Let's keep it 100. They say all the pastors are using the devil's power to cast out devils. Do you mean to tell me that all the churches and all the pastors are using the devil's power? Do you mean to tell me that you are the only true believer? Remember, Jesus said, he that is not with me is against me. There's not another choice. If we're not gathering with Jesus, then we're scattering abroad. I know the church has a lot of unrelated stuff in it. But I still say don't give up on the church. Find a good one, and if you must, start one. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think is gathering the most for God? The people walking around talking negatively about the church? Or is it the churches that they're talking about? It's not just gathering souls, it's prayer gatherings, worship gatherings, fellowship gatherings, and just gathering to do the work of the Lord. I know there are many sincere, unchurched people. And with all the negative things, they don't feel safe in some churches. But we better thank God for churches, because in some places around the world, there are no churches. Also, I'd like to say that there are good churches who serve God well. But the church in America has gone through some dark times. But guess what? I see the church coming back stronger than ever before. We can improve and help Jesus to build the church, but we have to do it from the inside. We can't do it when we're outside. Let's do our part to make the church strong. Let's reevaluate what it means to gather with Jesus. Let us be clear on what it means to be on God's side. If the message has helped you, please share it with someone else. Remember, it's a sin when you don't win.